Everybody's good to go. We are live. So thank y'all for coming together to do this. I know the families are really going to appreciate it, and something that's Leah's been wanting to do. I'm sure others in the family have wanted to do it. And Patsy and Linda are here on the side. You can't see them in the camera, but they're always welcome to chime in as well. There's tons of history and stories that y'all have shared over the years, just in the small time frame that I've been here. And of course, for all the siblings' kids, they have way more hearing the history that they've heard since they've grown up around it. And we just want to try to capture some of that. And one of the things that I was told to ask y'all about first was the story of the Watkins man. Is there anybody that wants to start?
Well, it was, I'll start. I'm the oldest one with a microphone. So I'll start off. And then the rest of them maybe don't remember it. But it's when we lived in Millet, at the house there in Millet. And this Watkins man would come. He seemed like he came through about 3 times a week. And he always stopped at our house, and our house was right by the main road that come through Millet, which came off of the old 81 highway that went from Laredo to Canada, and there were a lot of traffic on there. You know, I remember. And I'm gonna stop one story, start another one. But when I was in high school, we were in I'd had a date that night, and I was a senior, and I have to go real quiet because I wasn't dating my wife then. I got over, ran out of. We operated on propane accessories. One of them was our car was on propane.
Oh wow!
Had a tank in the trunk, and I had done everything. You know, I'd even taken a bath. You know, before that went on that date, and we got went out on a date, and I think we went to the drive-in movie or something. And
shame on you.
I know, I know, I did wrong. But Mom always told me, she probably didn't have to tell the rest of them, but she told me, she said, if you ever not show up by 12 o'clock, we're going to be out looking for you. And I said, well, Mom, I don't intend to be out after 12 o'clock. I said, if I am, I'm going to probably be asleep somewhere. And she said, you get yourself home. I said, I can't sleep until all of my children are in bed. And I thought it was Mama.
We're home.
Anyway, I run out of gas up there on that big hill where that old ranch that Will Nagy owned had that big tank out there right by the highway. That thing was probably 30, 40 feet across, and it was built out of concrete. And that's where there's a storage tank. And right there, I pulled off the side of the road, and it was, of course, it was an old single lane road, you know. And I said, well, I'll just catch the first vehicle that comes by, and whether they're going to Dilley or I can get on the phone, call Mama. We had a telephone. And so I got out sitting on the bumper, and waiting. And finally I got back in the car and sat down in the seat, and I could see both ways, you know. I could jump out and flag them down. I mean, there ain't nothing. Not a single vehicle came over that hill. No truck, no pickup, no nothing. Bicycles, they didn't come. And I thought, well, I'm just gonna lay down, just sit here and close my eyes a little bit. And I woke up and the sun was shining on my face right here.
No.
And good gracious, Mama and Daddy are stirring the country looking for me.
Mm-hmm.
And So I jumped out there and look, here come an old truck. Old Bob Tim. He's coming down the road like that. I jumped out there in the road and flagged him down. I mean, I wasn't letting him get by. It was an emergency. And he said, well, where are you going, son? I said, well, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Dilley. That's good enough for me. So we head on up to Dilley, and I get out at the old Phillips 66.
Yep.
I walked over there, and they were just opening up. It was pretty early in the morning. They were opening up, and I said, can I use your telephone? Oh, yeah. Well, I went in there and got on the phone, and I called Mama. And she said, who's this? I said, this is your son, Joe. Well, what are you doing on the telephone? Aren't you in there in bed? Mama slept all night long.
She was really worried.
Really worried. So I said, well, she said, where are you? I said, I'm in Dilley. And she said, well, it was on Sunday morning. And she said, well, we'll be going to church here at whatever time it was. And you got some clean clothes on? I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, well, you can just wear what you have on. And so they picked me up, and she said, why didn't you call me? I said, well, Mama, I'd had to wake you up and call you, and that'd have ruined your whole night. And I said, there was no traffic on that road, not one vehicle. And we thought it was a busy highway, not knowing that all night long they didn't need it. But we go on and go on to church, and I never was quite as easy to get away from the house as it was then. It was a lot easier to get then, and that way I didn't have to. Probably got in trouble 2 or 3 more times, but I didn't run out of propane. The last thing I checked on that car.
We all learned from Joe's. We just watched Joe do the opposite of what Joe did, and we're good to go. Yeah. And so we had a pretty smooth ride because he got the discipline, and we learned the lesson.
Yeah.
So
You're the wise ones.
Yeah.
Can I tell a story about that road?
Yeah.
Same place. Just about the same place.
Before you do, the road that he's talking about, that's what used to be 35?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Old 81.
Okay.
Old 81.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't any wider than a stable.
35 didn't exist.
Didn't exist. We were coming home from, it was Saturday night. We'd been working at the church all day long. Well, everybody else had been working. I was running around town, I'm sure, with cousins. And it was late, and they'd worked all day long. I think they were putting the baptistry in, putting the brick on the walls. And so we headed home, and just about where the old gully place was, we ran out of butane. And Mama was driving. I think Linda, myself, I don't know, Jerry might have been in there. And
I had a date.
Yeah. Joe was busy.
Another date.
He was
Another
busy.
date.
I was in the pickup.
And so we pulled off the side, and Mama said, it's all right, Daddy's behind us. And so when he gets here, he'll see us, and he'll pull up behind us. So we sat there, and about 15 minutes later, we see lights coming over the hill, and Mama said, oh, there's Daddy. So we all kind of get ready to get out, and this pickup comes around us and just goes around us and just keeps going. And Mama said, oh, Daddy saw us. He's going to get some gas. So we
very
sat
positive.
there.
She was a very positive
We
person.
sat there about 2 more days, and Daddy don't come back. And so we finally, Mama says, okay, we're going to walk up to the gullies, and I guess we'll call him. I guess he didn't have any gas or something. Didn't know what was. So, I mean, we head off, and they lived off the road, a mile off the road there. And, I mean, it was pitch black, and it was the middle of summer, and there was a rattlesnake under every bush. Mama knew it.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, get behind me. And we didn't have a flashlight. We didn't have nothing. It was just pitch black. But they had a little old lane that went up there at the house. So we get up there, and it was late. It must have been 7:30, 8 o'clock. It was way past our bedtime. And we get up there and wake them up, and Mama goes in there and calls Daddy, and wakes him up, and he says, what, huh? He said, it's Ruby. Marvin, it's Ruby. Where are you? Why didn't you stop? He said, stop for what? What are you talking about? Aren't you here in bed? And no, we ran out of gas on the highway, and you ran right by us and said, oh, brother. And boy, it wasn't 5 minutes he was there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was back.
Old pickup smoking.
Oh, man, I didn't know that old International Harvester could go that fast.
So it was him that drove by.
It was him that drove by, and, he just wasn't thinking. All he was thinking about was hitting that bed.
Yeah.
And, man, he was getting it on. But Mama didn't let him forget that for a long time.
So Daddy would go to bed at 8 o'clock every night. Every night he went to bed. He didn't tell us to go to bed. He turned the lights out.
No.
So there wasn't a whole lot going on.
You could figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, you kind of figure it out for yourself. And we'd mess around a little bit, but he'd get a little irritated and stomp his feet like he was coming to check on us, and we'd giggle, and we knew we had another turn or two before he got there. One night we pushed it a little too far. I'm crawling around on the floor, and I grabbed two hairy legs, and I knew that wasn't Joe, and I jumped up and ran and jumped in the bed. I mean, it scared me to death.
How big was the house that y'all were living in?
Well, at the time it was very big. We went back about 30 years later, and it was very small.
Yeah.
So things change in your mind from when you're smaller till when you grow up.
The great room that we had out in front, where you walked in the front porch into the great room, it was tiny.
It wasn't great.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It wasn't great.
We could have got 30 relatives in there back in the day. 5 of us barely fit in there the next time we came in there. It was amazing.
Yeah, and that house was ordered out of
Sears
East Texas.
Oh.
No, it wasn't Sears and Roebuck house, but it had some of the features that they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but they were moved to South Texas from the East Texas piney woods, and most of them had a sawmill or worked in a sawmill in some farmer fashion, and so they ordered each board cut and numbered from the sawmill, and it's like what Sears and Roebuck did when you order one out of the catalog. And we had they put it together. They actually bought 2 of them. They bought one for Grandpa, and then one for Grandma's mother and dad. And they came down with them, and they each bought half a section. So they were together, when they left and moved to Arizona. Not too long after that, Grandpa took their place and sold his and gave them the money. And it was at a better location. I think maybe a little bit bigger house, but they were all built a whole lot alike. And those houses were there till just a few years ago. Matter of fact, one of them's still there and still living in it, and they'd gone through the remodeling when we went out there probably, 5-10 years ago.
About 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What was Grandpa's name?
Joe.
Grandpa Joe.
Yeah.
Joseph William.
Yeah.
And Joe, can you talk about that old house? At one time, it faced the north.
Yeah, right. The county road it went out there was on the north side of the house. And so they came off of another, and then they decided that they were going to make a little better roads than, they were terrible. And they moved that road to the north, to the south of the house.
Yep.
And so they moved the porch around to the front of the house, so we could get in.
You got to have the front porch on the front of the house.
Right. If it was on the back of the house, what would they call that?
Outhouse.
So that's not even a thing you can do now. Order houses on the Sears and Roebuck magazine.
No,
That doesn't
I
even
don't think
exist
so.
anymore.
No.
No.
You
Probably.
can
You can probably order them online,
Online,
but
yeah.
there's
you can
no-
buy everything out of the Sears
Yeah,
Roebuck
and
catalog.
they'd ship it on a train, and they'd tell you when the train got there, and you'd have your wagons and mules, and you'd load all that on the wagon and haul it out to the ranch. And they'd go to looking at numbers, Well, it's like a what they call a drawing, which you draw from number to number,
Yeah.
and
If I'm not mistaken, under the house, because we were under the house a lot,
yeah,
and under the house it was mesquite post. They had
all mesquite.
it was,
everything.
in other words, the foundation was on
Pier and beam.
pier, on pier only,
Yeah.
no beams,
No.
and it was all mesquite post. Some of them still had the bark around it. Yeah.
What's the story of the mud story? Do you know Jimmy?
Well, there's a couple of mud stories.
There was one that we scared Jerry.
Oh,
that's-
Scared Jimmy.
yeah.
Was
No, that was
No.
me.
the,
that
oh,
was
he
me.
scared
Yeah.
Most of,
you.
most
So-
of scare stories involve Jerry.
So, I most of the time we had cousins of some sort out there at all times, and I don't know why, but I admired my older brother and thought he could do no wrong and that he was the best thing since sliced bread, and so I followed him wherever he went, and so whenever cousins or somebody come along, we usually would go to the creek, which was about a mile away. We had to cross a few other fences to get there. But as soon as we would get there, they would send me back home to get the water, drinking water. And I remember on many occasions going home, telling Mom I need a gallon jar with water in it. And she'd give it to me, and I would carry it, sloshing around and everything. I mean, I'm probably 8 to 10 years old in that time frame. And on one particular occasion, we were swimming in our, I'm going to use the word tank very loosely.
Let's call it hog water.
It was a hog waller. That's what it was. It was a mud pit.
Swimming pool.
Yes. And we had the best time down there. I mean, we had never seen a swimming pool. Well, we'd never seen anything like that. So we were pretty proud of this thing. And when people would come, we'd take them down and we'd go swimming. And we got down there, and of course, like I say, it was mud, probably 2 feet deep in the bottom of it, and then all around the edge and everything. So
Black mud.
it was black mud.
Black clay. Yeah. The stuff that holds water.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we, sure enough, we got down there, start playing a little bit. Everybody's getting thirsty, so they send me back. And this is not but about a quarter of a mile, so it wasn't no big deal. So I went on back and got the water and started coming back. And there's brush and little hog trails and all kinds of things in there. And I'm winding my way through to the tank, and all of a sudden, Joe and all of the older cousins had mud all over their face and their body,
We would buck naked
and buck naked.
and had that mud all just smeared on, and
Yeah. I don't know what scared me the most, buck naked or the mud. I threw the jar up in the air and I started hollering "Mama," and I started running home. And I tell you, it scared me to death. I thought we had been had.
he'd never seen an African before. That's the first African he ever met.
That's exactly right. Scared me to death.
Let me tell you how the dynamics of this worked. Joe was oldest, Jerry was in the middle, and I was the youngest. And they would haul off, and they were going on some great adventure, and Mama never would let me go. She'd just keep me up there in the house by her, and that was okay for a while. And then, boy, later on, I kept wanting to go, and finally she let me go one time. And we were on the tractor, Joe was driving, Jerry's on one fender, and I'm on the other fender. And we're going over there toward Moreno's. And
How old were you?
Oh, I was probably 6,
Okay.
6, maybe younger than that.
Maybe 17.
Yeah, could have been 17. There wasn't much difference when I was 6 and when I was 17. It was all about the same.
He didn't get to go nowhere.
He was treated the same.
No, but I was on there for some reason. Maybe Mama was gone to solo serve or something, but I was on there.
Yeah.
And so we're driving along out there in the field, and Joe comes to a stop. And he said, Jerry, go see what that is out there in the field. Well, Jerry jumped right off, and Joe said do something. We jumped right off and do it. He went out there, and about that time, Joe revved that old tractor up and headed right for him. Just built right to him like that. And Jerry looks up, and his little eyes about that big, and he's thinking, now, do I head for the house or do I head for the fence line? Well, the fence line was closer, so he headed for the Moreno fence line. And he's just out there in front, and old Joe's right behind him, and I'm hanging on to the fender. And he just and Jerry just dove right under that fence line, got right into the brush right there, and Joe pulled right up and threw on the brakes and right up into that fence just like that. And Jerry disappeared. He disappeared.
I can tell you, I can sit here all day and tell you stories about how he tried to kill me.
Well, let me finish my story.
Okay. All right.
Let me
Go
finish
ahead.
it, and then you
Go
can
ahead.
pick it up there. Later on, Mama told me why she always kept me up there close to her apron.
Jerry don't have a chance.
She said, Joe's going to kill Jerry. Joe's going to the pen, and you're going to be the only one I got left.
Yep.
So I got to have one of you with me. And by God's grace, we all survived.
We all survived.
You were the designated survivor.
I was a designated survivor. That's right.
I became a very good runner. I was pretty fast on my feet. On many occasions. Matter of fact, I got to the point where I would never walk out in the middle of an open field. That just never happened. I always walked along the fence line because I had to go one side or the other at any given time, by horse, by tractor, by pickup, whatever it was.
Later, that came in real handy when we went hunting with Uncle Dick.
Yes, yes.
Being close to
Yes,
the fence line.
yeah. Had an uncle that would take us and drop us off in different places as he would drop off propane, and he would say, Jerry, just realize you hunt on this side of the fence, but if a truck comes, jump on the other side of the fence. He said, now look,
We got
the
permission.
guy, there's a crazy guy out here, and he thinks he owns the place, but he really doesn't. His mom is the one that owns it, and I have permission from his mom, and he's crazy. So, so I stayed on top of the fence the whole time and never looked for deer. I looked for trucks. That was where I was. I was a nervous wreck. Yeah, pretty crazy.
That is hilarious. Wow. Interesting times growing up.
It was an education.
Survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest.
Or the fattest.
I realized these younger ones would have a hard time making it in coming off of a dry land farm in the drought in Millet, Texas. So I was trying to boost their athletic ability.
It was his job. It was his job
yeah,
to make that
I took
happen.
it on myself,
Yeah.
to do that.
I thought he was trying to kill me. I don't know.
But it worked out pretty good.
It's a blessing of the good Lord that I didn't go to the penitentiary.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm alive to tell it.
The best story is when Joe got a pair of boxing gloves for Christmas.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't get 2 pair. He only got 1 pair. He only asked for 1 pair. And Mama didn't pick up on it and say, well, Joe, who are you going to fight if you only got 1 pair of boxing gloves? But he got them. Well, it was a right fist for Joe and a left fist for Jerry.
Yeah.
And they'd spar.
Yep.
And they'd spar. And the funny thing is, we're all right-handed.
Yeah.
And I knocked him out right at the front door of the house, and Mama was pulling in with the groceries on Saturday,
Yep.
She'd go to town to get groceries, and she wouldn't ever take us. We never got to go.
I was flat on my back, laid out on the grass, and Joe's over me trying to revive me.
That's where float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. That's where that came from.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
Yep.
I think Muhammad Ali.
I sure
used
was
it like-
glad when I got him awake. But Mama was just walking up there, you know, with
Get
two
up, get up.
And then,
sack of groceries in each hand.
as I got better, he started bringing his friends off the football team out there to box me. So I got beat up almost daily by somebody. So to this day, I see something coming out of the corner of my eye and I want to dodge.
One day the boxing gloves disappeared.
Just gone.
Never got to see them again.
Yep.
So that saved a lot of little kids.
I wonder where Mama buried those things.
Where is she buried?
It wasn't Mama.
You smarten up.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they're gone, long gone now.
Long gone.
Long gone, daily on.
We used to the Sears Roebuck Christmas catalog. Speaking of gifts, used to come in about end of September in the mailbox, and it was about that thick, big old magazine, and so it had all the toys in there, and so we'd bring it home, and I think Patsy got to look at it first, and then Joe got to look at it, and then Jerry got to look at it, Linda got to look at it. I got it last. And by the time I got it, all the good pages were ripped out of it.
Well, it was sitting out there in that old outhouse. You know, that's where we take the catalog when we got it.
So we get some peace and quiet.
So our favorite thing to do would be to sit on the couch, one person to the left, one person to the right. One side of the book was on one lap, one was on the other, and everything on this side was mine. Everything on that side was theirs. And we would trade gifts. I want this, but I will trade you this for that. That was Christmas.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was exciting.
And we could pick out like $3 worth of stuff out of there that we wanted for Christmas. And so, man, I mean, it took months to get the money situation just right, to get the most stuff in order. And Mama said, here's what happens. The world is too big now for Santa Claus to get all the way around the world. So he just goes to Dallas to Sears Roebuck and drops everything off for South Texas at Sears Roebuck, and that comes in, and it comes in from there.
Yep.
And so
It made
sure
a lot
enough,
of sense.
yeah,
We
made
would
sense to us.
celebrate Christmas and Sears and Roebuck every year about that time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when we'd go to about almost dark, we'd get in the car to go to Grandma's house for Christmas Eve, and all the clans would be there. Everybody, all your cousins, all your aunts and uncles, and would all be there at Christmas Eve at Grandma's house. So we'd all go out and get in the car, and we're excited. And Mom would come out there, get in the car, and she'd say, Marvin, I forgot something. And she'd have to go back in the house.
Every year.
Every
We
year
never
this
caught
happened.
on to it.
So we'd have to sit there about 30 minutes, and then Mom would come back, and she'd have cobwebs all over, and she was sweating, and she'd get in the car. We'd go to Grandma's house, do that. Then we'd stop at Millet to go to Grandma Matthews and Aunt Edna's, have Christmas, and then we'd head to the farm.
Yeah.
4 miles.
Yeah.
It was like 150 miles.
Yeah,
out
yeah.
there.
It took forever, and Daddy kept seeing things in the sky. He
Oh,
never
yeah.
said what it
Yeah.
was, but he
Yeah.
kept seeing things in the sky.
Yeah.
I know what it was.
Where?
UFO. And we'd get in we'd go turn off the highway, go down our lane, and Mom and Daddy would drive like 3 miles an hour.
Yes.
Oh, and finally Jerry'd just get out and start running.
I would.
and then Daddy
would speed up, and I'd
Yeah.
never beat him. So everybody was there opening gifts. I came in all sweaty, and I
We'd
made
run
it.
in there, And everything we had ordered out of the Sears Roebuck catalog was there, open and under the tree.
Yep.
And I think I was 56 years old when Mama finally told me that it was her that was putting all the stuff. I still believed it was Santa Claus had put all that stuff under there. We were a little bit slow.
1 year, and I don't know, it was one of the girls found an order slip. Patsy found an order slip of everything that was coming in. They had sent the order slip fulfilled to our house and sent all the gifts to Aunt Edna's. And we got to look through, and then we would identify exactly what it was with the catalog, with the number, and we knew exactly what was coming. I mean, we were either disappointed or we were not already before it got there. Yeah, we were not, no dummies there. You know?
We had the best Christmases ever, I tell you. Before every Christmas Eve, it would be cold and clear and crisp, and there would be a million stars in the sky. And like you were talking about, on the way from Millet out to the farm, Daddy, I saw a light coming over the Morena pasture. I think it looked like it's coming from our house. Boy, we were looking at it.
Really, Daddy? Really?
Yeah. Because Daddy never told a lie. He always told the truth. And boy, we were all hanging out the door looking.
He couldn't take it no more. He jumped
out.
and
started running. Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Fun was had by all.
So, when y'all would go camping, Garner Park.
Oh yes.
When was that a annual thing that you would
pretty
do?
much annual event.
What would that normal time? What would that look like on that? I guess leading up to and
it looked like the Beverly Hillbillies.
I will give you a picture of one particular time. We had a bobtail truck that was a harvest truck. So in other words, we carried
cotton bales
and grain and everything else to the market with this thing. And we basically stripped our whole house of furniture and bedding, which meant mattresses.
Loaded mattresses in the spring.
Yeah, old canvas that you put over the cotton bales to keep them dry. Everything that you can imagine. My dad was a manager of a propane company, so we got free propane. So everything that we had was on propane. And I'm talking about refrigerators and lights and all kinds of stuff. And he had made like homemade camp stoves and lights that he hung up in the big trees that lit the whole place.
Lit up the whole Garner Park.
Yeah, pretty much. And we had some crazy times over there. Sometimes it would rain us out and it would flood, and we was always right down by the water. We had the perfect spots, and we would get flooded out and everybody had to evacuate. There's many times we had to do that.
Well, one time Grandpa Banning and Grandma Banning would never leave. They'd always stay there at Millet, and we'd pack up and leave, usually in August when we'd go up there. So everybody had to get their crops in and get the money, you know, and so that's where we'd go. And Grandma had 9 children. We had nearly all the Matthews. They only had 2 girls besides us, wasn't it? Yeah, 2 girls. Mm-hmm. And we had 1 girl, 4 boys. So when we got together, it wasn't no big deal. You know, it wasn't no crazies going on, and like it was when we'd go to Grandma's, because they was 4 or 5 my age.
Oh yeah,
2 or 3 year age.
Yes.
So when y'all get together,
it was just like a wreck. You know, we every Sunday we went to Grandma's, and they always go to church, and then we go up there, and there were 3 or 4 or 5 big older boys who's already graduated from high school.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I guess some of them were still off in Germany fighting the World War II.
Some of them were as old as their aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
They were the same age.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There was 9 people in my mom's family. So you can imagine, and it started early and ended late. So
when Grandma
slew of
Banning had Uncle Earl, I believe, then Aunt Gladys was in the hospital having Mary Alice.
That's right.
Mary Alice.
And
Smith.
and Aunt Uncle Isaac,
Nettie, Aunt Nettie.
Aunt Nettie, she was having these were both of her children, and she was pregnant, and they were both pregnant, and they had them all within a week.
Mm-hmm.
They were all born, and the oldest one was Gladys. She was 1st, and then
Uncle John.
Uncle John, and no, it wasn't Uncle John. He was having kids.
Leroy.
Grandma that was her last. No, it wasn't her last one. That her first one was Charles was one of them. Mary Alice was one of them, and who?
Well, Charles, our first cousin, and Uncle Paul both went to the Korean War together. Signed up at the same time and went to war.
Wow.
But Uncle Paul though had been in World War II.
Yes.
He was still in the army.
Yeah.
And he'd been in it over in the Philippines, and then he was grandma's brother, her
next to the last.
Next to the last,
Uh-huh.
Charles, and then Uncle Earl was in Korea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was a medic.
Mm.
And when he came home, he was at home on furlough, and I was a little old tot, and I was sitting in the front seat of the car. You know, like little kids, like, I thought that's where they're supposed to be, in the front seat.
Yeah.
And they're looking around. Well, I was sitting up there, and the Uncle Earl and Daddy had gone somewhere out to the ranch or something, and we come back into town, and just as we pulled up in front of Grandma's house, which was one block off of the old 81 highway, and it came in over by the railroad, and it turned like this, and went like this, and then turned like this back up by the highway again, coming into Millet. And we're sitting in there talking, and y'all remember Uncle Earl had the door open. And about that time, you heard this screeching noise, and just a big crash. And Daddy said, "That's a wreck right there." So Uncle Earl jumped in, and he said, "Get me as close as you can." And he was a medic, and he got up there. Well, there was no need to get close. They both jumped out and ran for the car, and the car had gone. It was a couple stationed in the Army in San Antonio. They'd gone to Mexico for the weekend, and his man and his wife, and in a convertible, and they had made that first curve, and what ahead of them was cattle trucks, and what was the old man? Miss Pate, Mr. Pate.
Yeah.
He was driving that cattle truck.
Yeah, Jake Pate.
Jake Pate.
He driving that cattle truck, and when he went around that curve, they were going too fast, and he was trying to make it, and then somebody was coming on this side, and he went underneath the cattle truck, and just, I mean, the woman was a red-headed woman, and I jumped out of the car and followed Daddy, and I stepped on her hair, and her head was just laying there on the ground, and I stepped on her hair. I'll never forget it. I was a little old kid, and they run over to the man, and he was dead. I don't remember what had happened to him, but that woman was decapitated when that convertible went under that cattle truck. And that was
That's a toughie.
that changed the flow of events.
Yeah.
And it was, I'd say it's probably in the summertime when it happened. And then another time where we had a catastrophe, was the time when
That was most of the time, wasn't it?
Well, most of the time. But this one was we were working some calves in the pen. We were working some of the younger calves, and we heard this hollering going. We were looking all around. The pen was kind of down below the house. And we're looking all around. We hear it. Finally, come clear what he said. He said, "Mr. Marvin, Mr. Marvin." And we looked up there. The road that went to the highway was probably quarter mile, and see somebody running down the road toward the house. And we all got up and looking and staring and didn't know what in the world. You tell it's desperate, you know. And
Mama said, "Run, get under the house."
Yeah. We'll get you out and this is over with. He come running straight back to the pens down there, and we met him about halfway to the house. And he it was Munchie Garcia, and he was a couple of years older than I was.
Yeah.
And he had a big old. They had a big old bobtail truck that they used in farming. They were about a mile or two down the road from us. Well, his grandma, which we went to her 100th birthday party out there at the Ramirez Ranch. He was going over to see her, and he didn't. You know, he hadn't graduated from high school yet, and he went over there to going over to see her. And she got to the gate where you turn in, and Munchie was turning the truck in at the gate, and Bohar was coming in from he come on about dark every night, drunker than a skunk, and he come over that hill, and Munchie come out of that gate, and they hit head on, and they hit right on the fender, and Bohar's pickup just turned somersault. Yep. Went across the fence into Ramirez's and rolled off up there and threw Bo out. And Bo was in the bar ditch.
Just out cold.
He was out cold. He was sound asleep.
Moochie was running down the road,
Moochie
hollering,
yeah.
"Had a wreck, Bo's dead. Had a wreck, Bo's dead." We could just hear it as he was coming down. I mean, it got our attention real fast.
Mr. Bo dead. And so we were prepared, and Mama went ahead and called Ralph Hearn. You know, that was the undertaker.
Slash ambulance.
Plus ambulance. And he's running down the road, and all Mr. Bo's dead, Mr. Bo's dead. Well, we all got to Mr. Bo about the same time, and we got over there, and what happened, Mr. Bo, between alcohol and a hard hit on his head, he was just knocked out.
Yeah.
Well, he started coming to, and he come to, and the first thing he said, he always carried one of those pump 22s. I forget the number of it, the antiques.
Yep.
He carried it behind his seat on his old pickup, and the first thing he said was, "Where is my gun?" Ooh. Well, Munchie was just sliding to a stop there. You know, he just got there, and he's scared to death of Mr. Bo. He's one of them old tough guys, and he's trying to get up like that, and Daddy trying to hold him down. And he said, "Daddy, we got Ralph Hearn coming," and he said, "I don't want that old SOB around me."
That's what he said.
And he said, Daddy said, "Just lay still. We'll wait till he gets here, then we'll go." Well, we waited and waited and waited. About 10 or 15 minutes, I think probably he thought he's dead too, and so he
was taking his time.
He'd rather get a dead one in there than out there to get a sick one, you know.
Yeah. He was painting the little, you know, funeral box. What do you mean?
There was more money in it.
A lot more money on a dead one. So anyway, finally Daddy said, "Joe." Oh no, Bo said he caught all those hard boys all call me Joe Boy.
Yep.
And he said, "Joe Boy, you know where I live?" I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Bo." you take me there? I looked at Daddy. He said, I said, yes, sir, I'll take you there. And he said, all right, get in the pickup. He got in the pickup. He said, you sure you know where I live, Joe boy? Yes, sir, I know where you live. Okay. So we started down the road. He lived about 3 or 4 miles down the road. And Mama had already called his wife. And so she's standing out on the front porch. We got by and it's about 100 yards up there to the house. And said, Joe boy, you sure you know where I live? I said, I think, isn't this it right here? And he looked over and he saw Stella, his wife. Boy, she was riled up, big old grumpy voice. And Bo looked at me, he said, I didn't hear.
Keep driving.
Keep it driving. I said, now what am I going to do? I mean, I was about probably 11 years old.
You didn't want a piece of Stella, that's for
No,
sure.
I didn't want to have to deal with Stella.
Just take me to Ruby's.
So we turned around, we drove out the road there, and every time I'd see a gate, I'd ask, I said, does this look like it? No, not it. We went about halfway to Los Angeles, and I said, I think we missed it. I think it's back behind us. He said, I think you're right. So we turn around and we start back, and I'm going, what am I going to do if I got to go past his house again? And I got up there and I waited till it was real close, and I said, here's your house right here where you just missed it. And he said, are you sure? And he looked at Stella still standing out there, wondering what in the world we're doing. And she had, so I pulled in there. Well, they had a garage over here that stood behind the house, and they had a little porch on it between the house and there. When Bo come in drunk, he could find his way up those stairs. And that was every night. I'm talking about every night he come home drunk. And he got out, and I pulled up there, and Stella come around and opened that door. I thought she's gonna jerk that door off there. Said, "Get out of there, Bo." Bo had his head down like that. You know, he was real sad that he had an accident. He said, Bo said, honey, I'm all right. I'm okay. I don't know what she said, but anyway, he got out and they went on in the house, and I got over there to the accident scene of the accident, and there's the undertaker just got there.
Yeah.
And he said, Joe, how's he doing? I said, I think he's all right. I said, I think he can run right now if he can get away from Stella.
That was imprinted on my mind for many years. I was about 10 to 12 years old, and I mean, it was like, it was unbelievable. It just.
Old Ralph Hearn, he used to go in the cafe down there in Cotulla, the old chuck wagon, and he'd find old men that'd go in there and drink coffee, and he'd go up to them when they'd stand up to pay their bill, and he'd go up there and he'd had a measuring stick, and he'd put it up beside them there.
Oh yeah.
And they'd get mad.
Oh yeah.
I'm just measuring for your casket.
Yeah. Well, when he came up to that wreck, he said, "Where's Bo?" And I said, "He wanted to go home. He's all right." And he said he's okay. And so Joe Boy took him home. And Ralph Hearn said, "I didn't want to carry that SOB back anyway." I mean, that was not. It was a different world for us.
Oh, God.
It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Not much happened out there on the farm, but a lot happened out there on the farm.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't take much to really get your attention about when they burnt down the hotel there in Millet.
Yeah.
We were out there in the pens doing something, and you could see the fire.
Yeah.
Was it
Was it 3-story or 2-story?
Two,
It's
I think
big,
it's two.
biggest building I
It was
ever
big.
saw.
It was big.
Yeah.
Big.
Yeah.
All wood. All solid wood.
Had a porch, I think, all the way around that thing.
All the way around.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the second floor.
Second floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know there was a hotel in Millet
There was.
Yeah.
at one time.
At one
Yeah,
time.
It was a pretty plush hotel. The stagecoach would stop and they'd get off and spend the night and maybe get on the train, wherever they had come from. And once they got on the train, they could go to Woodward or Cotulla or Dilley. And so they could do some fast traveling, to get on the train.
And that thing, I don't know when it closed down. It was empty by the time I was old enough. Aunt Edna and Grandma lived just kind of
1 block away.
1 block away from it. We used to go over and play in it.
Playing it.
And I mean, it had them old creaky stairs that went up, and there was still some old iron beds up there in the top. And I mean, it was quite a.
I don't think it had a roof on it at that time. Seems like
I
it
don't
was.
remember.
Second floor was open to the sky. Seems like.
But who knows the story of how it caught fire and burnt down? Joe.
Oh.
Wasn't me.
You.
But I did some detective work. There were 2 boys there that lived around Millet, and one of them was Danny Adams. He was a year older than I was, and then the other one was Roy Meir, and Roy Meir was the same age as I was. And we had that day, this was like probably 10 or 15 years ago. I was at the cafe, and this guy walked out of the cafe getting his pickup. Boy, he looked familiar. I said, I know that guy. And I walked in, and old Jack Dubose was walking out the door. He said, hey, I just been talking to one of your Millet buddies. I said, what? He said, that boy walked out. And he couldn't even remember his name. I said, Danny Adams, that's him. Well, I took off out the door, and he was still him and his wife were in there, and they were getting in the pickup.
Wow.
And he was living in San Antonio. I walked up there to the door, and he opened the door, and I said, do you remember me? Are you from Millet? I said, yeah, I'm one of them boys down at Millet. Joe, you Joe? Yeah, I'm Joe. So we got up and went back in the cafe, sat there and drank coffee and talked a long time, and I said, Danny, I want to know something. I want to know who set fire to the hotel down there. He kind of looked all around. He said, that was probably 30 years before, this happened, that I run into him. And he said, me and Roy was up there smoking. And they had a bunch of old newspapers laying on the floor and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We thought, well, I would build a little fire in that fireplace there, and we might even move in here sometime. And they was both about to get run off from home,
Oh yeah.
And Roy lived with his grandparents, and they were hard on him. I mean, old man was an old tough old cowboy, and he'd just whip him all the time. He needed it the most.
Yes, he did.
And he said, anyway, that fire got out of control, and it got to blowing around up there, and the first thing you know, the whole top was on fire. And I said, well, what did you do then? I said, we broke and run. We went home and went to bed. Well, Danny lived right across the street.
Yeah, he was half a block away.
Yeah.
At most.
Yeah.
So where at Millet was a hotel located?
It was almost right on Highway
Street.
81, which is now 35.
You know where I told you it went in like that
And then
and they back out? Well, that's where it came out right there on that curve. It built right there. And it was a grand hotel. I mean, it was
Back in the day.
back in the day.
It was right behind Main Street. There was a Ferguson store. Was there on the highway?
Well, there was that old there was 2 filling stations on either
Yeah.
side of that highway,
Yeah.
right there. One of them was on the same lot as the hotel. was,
Yeah.
and it wasn't across the street. And then Ferguson Store was the next building down, and then the post office, which was a grand building, is a big brick building. It had a grocery store and
Wow.
Hardware.
hardware.
Yeah.
And then Willoughby's had a hardware store too. And the only thing
And then you forgot the little convenience store.
no, I hadn't got there.
Oh,
yet.
you hadn't got there yet?
No,
Okay.
that's the other side of the post office.
It sounds like a big town.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what-
yeah, it was. It was. But you know, a store you could stock a store, you know, out of your pocket.
Yeah.
You know, if you could find a building, you got a store,
Yeah.
and they'd bring in stuff. Salesman would come by and they'd take a list of what you needed, and then the truck would come in and deliver it, and they'd drop it off at the store, and that was you know, the way that the people lived, and they didn't try to jack prices up. Everybody was just trying to make a living, you know.
And nobody would wanted to drive all the way to Dilley.
No,
That was too far away. That's 6 miles to Dilley.
Wow.
Nobody drive that far.
and they're afraid that some of them kids would escape, you know,
Yeah.
run off.
Let them in a big town.
Got in a big town, a lot of bad people there,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And of course, there everybody knew everybody, and you couldn't get away with nothing. And so we ended up we would go down to that store and the filling station too. There, the Man-Tooth filling station, and that was the first filling station in town.
Wow.
When they put had gasoline cars, you know,
Yeah. Wasn't there a,
It was a happening place right there.
Wow.
All the old men sat on a bench and spit and whittled out there. It was a neat place.
Wow.
My grandpa was one of them. He'd go down there and the old man that owned it was that ran it was old man young blood Billy's uncle Uncle
George McCombs.
George McCombs.
Yep.
George McCombs. That was Billy's grandmother's brother, and Billy told me one morning. He said, "Well, Uncle George blew the cork last night." Well, what happened? He said, he walked out to, they lived about a mile out of town. And he walked up at the house about midnight, and he had gotten in a fight with an Indian in the back. He slept in the back room of the filling station. He had a cot there and his pillow and sheets and blankets. And he said he had a nightmare that an Indian was trying to steal his money. He was beat off the base, just running in the door, and they never found any sign of an Indian, you know.
He was a tiny little boy,
Yeah,
a little
little
old
bit.
man. We called him Little George.
Yeah.
Little George.
Yeah.
And he had a I remember this. This was probably in the early '60s. He had it was like a little old house, and he had a gas pump out front. What is one of those that you filled up the
tank.
reservoir?
Glass
You can see it.
You're right.
The
You can see
glass.
it,
Yeah.
and then
Oh, yeah.
then gravity fed into your vehicle.
Yeah.
And he had one deal out there, but inside he had a living room, and he had a few groceries in there, and had a little counter, and he had these candy jars there, and about that tall, and you could buy a deal of candy, a licorice, I guess, about that tall for 2 cents. If you could ever find 2 cents. You
Yeah.
could buy a piece of candy that big. It was absolutely amazing. And then there was the kitchen, and there was a table in there in the kitchen, and the old man would sit around there and drink coffee. It was his house, but he sold a few groceries and sold gas out of it.
Wow.
And that was the neatest place. I
Oh,
can't imagine. I can still see that candy jar
Yeah.
in my mind. If I could have ever gotten 2 cents,
Oh yeah.
I
It's hard to find.
never got 2 cents. Didn't ever had 2 cents to rub together.
True story. The bus would stop there. Everybody would get off the bus, and they would go into either that store or to the
Post
one
office.
across the street, which was a post office / everything else. And they would get the mail, These are kids of all ages. Get the mail, maybe get a loaf of bread, whatever it was that they needed for the house, and get back on the bus, and then we'd take off. Roy Meir was kind of like Fonzie. We had several guys on the bus that were identical to the Fonzies that we all know about, and this was in the 50s. Yeah, it'd be the late 50s, and Roy was too cool. So, as a second grader, he would give me some money, some change to go in and buy his cigarettes, and he said, "Keep the change." And there's where the 2 cents came from.
Yeah,
and I would get a penny candy or whatever it was, which was a lot, and give him his cigarettes. And nobody asked any questions. And Mom never knew it. And I didn't even know it was wrong. I knew nothing. I was just looking at that candy.
Yep.
And I'd have done anything for that candy.
That's the prize. Yep.
So the buildings, were they all wood or brick or?
There was one brick building there.
The old
Post office.
post office.
Yeah.
It was
It was
brick.
brick.
Is this not standing anymore?
No, it's not.
It's all knocked down.
All
When I
I
was
wonder why these guys driving these motorcycles around out there. They've been by here a couple times.
Oh, yeah?
I think they're gone now.
Yeah, it must be.
my first remembrance of anything was we went over there to get the mail one time, and they were building that overpass. The first divided highway on 81 was right there at Millet.
Yeah.
For some reason, about a mile north of town to a mile south of town, they went ahead and built an overpass right there at Millet.
Yep.
And they were digging those tanks out just as you cross the railroad tracks. They dug tanks on both sides for the dirt for that overpass. And we were going over there and that big equipment, it just amazed me, all that big equipment they had. And we pulled over there into that post office, and I went in there with Mama, and there was a package there for Mama, and it's about this big. And she opened it up, and it was a bathing suit for me. Now, I don't know where we were going to go swimming, but it was a bathing suit, and she had bought that. And I guarantee you I wasn't 4 years old, because that thing wasn't open very much longer. The post office there, not very much longer. But that sat right in front of Grandma Matthews and Aunt Edna's house, was right behind it there, and it sat right there on Main Street. And we used to go down there and sit on the front steps after they closed that building down. Sat on the front steps. You went up these steps, had these glass windows there at the front, and we'd sit there and watch the train go by when the train would come by. And that was a big deal, see the train go by.
Oh, yeah.
What was the big deal was on the train too, was when I was little, about that age, it was a steam engine. And boy, you could tell the difference too when those diesels come through, and when that steam engine come through, steam coming out of it, and it was rolling through.
Yeah.
And then when they come up, when they got the diesel, it was like the world ended. You know? We loved to watch that steam engine.
Very modern.
Yeah.
I saw one steam engine come through there, and Linda and I were sitting down there on those steps, and it was a big old black engine, and I mean that steam was rolling out of that thing. I thought that was the wildest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was so cool.
That train started coming through Millet in '83. That's when they built the track to Cotulla, and they started
1883.
1883.
Wow.
1883. And that's really actually when Millet was founded. It was named after an old guy that worked in the depot. Every town had a depot, and that train would stop, deliver packages or whatever, and passengers, but not nobody there went to Millet.
Right.
Wow.
That was a neat town. It was a lot went on in that town. You know, you drive over that overpass today, and you look over there, and you don't see anything. Nobody ever know about all the life that went on in that little old town. Had a big old school building. I think Grandpa early on was on the school board.
President of the school board there, and they built that new building. Yeah,
Had a brick schoolhouse there.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Very nice.
Yeah.
On Main was it
No,
on Main
it
Street?
was it was a
One
block off. Yeah.
Right across the street from where
We
we
lived.
lived at one time.
Wow.
Yeah, before we moved out to the farm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now all the remnants of downtown Millet are on someone's property. If there's
Yeah,
anything
yes.
They
there.
sold
Yes.
it all off.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
Yeah. There's some
people in lots and empty lots and all
we
kinds
knew
of
a
stuff.
man, John Fothery, and he was raised in I think he was born in Covey Chapel out west of Dilley, and we knew him down there in Corpus Christi, and he said, I own a lot in Millet. I think his father or mother inherited it or something, and he said, I don't know where it's at. I don't.
Wow.
He said, I pay the taxes. I still pay the taxes on it.
Fat don't beat 'em.
And he said, I don't know where it's at. He said it's kind of close there to Main Street, but I guess when he died probably 20 years ago, and that little piece of property, I'm sure somebody has gone in there and cleared it up and taken it, paid it,
Yeah.
bought it.
They would have auctions, and they'd sell all that property that the county had taken back in an auction.
Sheriff's auction.
Somebody.
Sheriff's auction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but boy, that was a neat little place. We when Linda and I were little, Mama didn't like Halloween. She didn't like that kind of stuff, and we always wanted to go trick or treating. Always, we'd ask, "Oh, go." Well, one time she finally said, "I'll take you to Millet." Oh man, we were excited. Oh, we just couldn't wait. So we drove over to Millet, and there was probably at that time 20 homes still there. And so we went and knocked on the first one, and it was Grandma Banning's old house there with I forget the people that lived
Straws.
there.
Older people.
The straws.
They were all older people that lived there, and that were trapped in Millet, couldn't get out. And so we knocked on the door, and they came to the door, and trick or treat, and they weren't sure what that meant. And I think she
What's
came
that?
back with an apple, and we got an apple. And so I wasn't very excited about that. I wanted candy. And so went down to Ms. Harr's house and knocked on the door. Well, she always had sugar cookies.
Oh yeah.
So we got a sugar cookie. That was pretty good. Homemade sugar cookie. That was pretty good, but it wasn't candy. So
Chocolate.
then we went over to Aunt Edna and Grandma's house, and I knew we weren't going to get anything there. And so knocked on the door, and Aunt Edna, we had to go in. Well, we had to go in and talk for a while, see Grandma.
Did you have to wait for her to
Yeah.
go in until she got the sheets on it?
Yeah, we had to wait till she got sheets over all the furniture before we could go in and sit. She'd allow us in the house. And so we talked a while, and I think we got a banana. I think she had a banana. I'd had a banana before, but I wanted candy. No candy. There was one more stop, and that was Berta Carter's house. And we went up, and I said, she's a teacher, so I know she knows what Halloween is. So we went up there and knocked on the door. She said, won't y'all cute? But I don't have any candy. So I just turned and headed. I told Mama, I said, that's it. Let's just go back back home.
Take me home.
Yeah.
Make some fudge.
Yeah.
Let's make some fudge.
That was the most disappointing. So to this day, at Halloween, and my wife gets on to me, but I'll buy tons of candy, just bunches of candy. So, and we get,
and then you eat it all.
I did, yeah. And then we turn out the lights, lock the door, and I eat it all. That was so disappointing. Now, Jake, whatever you do, don't take Luna to Millet trick or treat.
Right.
All right?
Exactly. She'll be
that.
disappointed.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I want to take. Maybe that is the place to
Maybe
take.
that's where you do want to go.
She likes bananas.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
There
That's
you
right.
go. There you go.
Well, I think it's a good stopping point for now, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And is there anything that y'all want to say before we end this?
I would.
Or for now?
I'd like to say something.
Till
I'll tell
next
you
time.
what. I was probably the most blessed boy in the world. that I grew up in this country with my family, the family that we had. We were so wealthy we didn't realize how wealthy we are. But as you get older and you go and you meet other people and you hear their experiences from their families and not really good experiences, everything we talked about was wonderful. Even the bad times were wonderful, wonderful times. And
We didn't know it.
didn't know it.
Didn't know it at the
No.
time.
Everybody else
No.
was the same way. you
Yeah,
know.
it was this old country. I think I tell my grandkids stories about growing up, and they think we were raised in the 1880s, you know. But this old country was kind of isolated, but it was wonderful. The people were wonderful. Everything was it was a great. I couldn't imagine being raised anywhere else but right here in LaSalle County.
And to know that our dad was born in 1912. He saw his first vehicle when he was 5 years old, and the doctor in the county was the only one that had a vehicle, and he came out and took care of his mom, and Dad got to actually ride on the little running board to go open the gate to let him back out.
Wow.
And he tells that story, and he said it was unbelievable to see something like that running on its own. You know, it was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That totally different times.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Different times.
And isolated way down in South Texas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Papa, anything you want to say? Anything? Any last words?
I guess I'm kind of like you. You know, we lived in Millet. I was born in Pearsall in the hospital. I think my sister was the first one in their family that was born in the hospital, and they took me there. And when we came back home, Daddy was harvesting milo with a combine, but those old combines they had a seat up there where you drove the combine, and then it had a grain box on it, and it had an auger that you could auger it into or put it in 100-pound sacks, tow sacks, and everybody used the tow sacks, so it took an extra man to run the other deals. And so Daddy would get on the combine till he filled that deal up, and then he'd go back there and put it sack it, and he'd drop the sacks off. They slide down on the ground, and then when he got through in the evenings, he would go by and pick up all those sacks on the back of the pickup, and they'd haul them into Millet, and that's where they loaded on a train. And they had a train car over there on the track, on the side track. And he'd have to go unload each sack and dump it into that train car. They'd weigh it, had scales there to weigh it. And so they knew what was his. And he'd get paid when they got through. Old Willoughby was buying it for somebody in San Antonio. I don't know who it was, but it was all shipped to San Antonio. And that was the kind of the start of commerce in Millet. Was when that railroad come through. When I was a kid, I went to Millet school when I was probably first, second grade, and we were out on the playground, and it was like I said, right in between the school was between middle of Millet, about in the middle of Millet. And then the railroad was right over here, and the railroad pins were right there close. And every town that had a railroad, and they had railroad pins. And we were all out there playing, and then the teachers come out there and they'd hooping and hollering, and they'd get in that school, get in there, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. We looked up there, and here come a big herd of steers, about 1,000 steers, coming in there to right across the yard,
Wow.
of the schoolhouse. We was up the windows and all looking at it. That's what I want to do. I want to do that someday. And there's about 10 cowboys, had them all bunched up, and they took them right on down there and put them in the pens. And then that train was already there. And they all day long, they were loading the car, close it off, pull up another car in the long line of train,
Wow.
and load those cattle up, and then they'd head out for Kansas. They were going to Kansas with them. And they'd put them on grass up there, and they'd get fat, get really fat. And usually they was pretty poor, you know. We grow good horns down here, but we didn't grow a lot of fat.
Not a lot of fat.
And Daddy said that they had a black guy that was with the railroad, and he sat up there on the chute was probably about it's wide enough to get those horns down that chute, and he sat up there one leg over here on this post, one over here on this post right when they went into the car, and he had a big old axe, double bitted axe, and he'd knock those horns off those steers.
Wow.
Are you kidding?
And load them on the train. Yeah,
gracious.
water, blood just going everywhere, you know. And that way they could put more cattle in the car with those horns off. And it hurt for them to butt another cow, you know, because everybody sat pretty still on that train when they knocked those horns off.
Goodness gracious.
Wow.
Well, thank you again for taking the time to do this and share your stories. And then next time we hope to be able to do this again when y'all are together. So, yeah, today is the day after Thanksgiving, November 24th, 2023.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, and it is a beautiful day.
Thank you,
outside,
Jake,
so-
for having us.
Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime. Glad to do it.
Thank you.
All right,
Jay.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Okay.